Hello, everyone. Jason Hagholm here, and it's time for episode 6 of Jason and the Gentleman. And of course, joining me is the gentleman of mixed martial arts, the gentleman Josh Hill. Josh, how are you doing?
Good, brother. Good. Pretty much moved in. Everything's I'd say like 90% done, but it's been a hectic week, but it feels good to be home.
Yeah, see, it looks all nice and set up well. You got your that World Series of Fighting posters up there, some of your movie stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's officially home now.
I'm in. Yeah, it's been like I said, it's been crazy, but we kind of hammered down for the week and we're good, man.
Yeah, I mean it's can't be as crazy as what's going on south of the border right now, as it is election night right now, and some of the early results are coming in, and it's a close race. I mean, I don't want to get too much into the politics side of it,
Yeah.
but I mean, you're someone that does a lot of your business south of the border fighting for Bellator, and do you have any much interest of what's going on right now, Josh?
I'm not super into it. I try actually not to be just because it can kind of consume you, to be honest,
Mhm.
and usually just turns into a negative outcome no matter what. But yeah, it is pretty crazy. I think no matter who wins, there's going to be some chaos in the result. So it's going to be, you know, interesting but kind of scary to see what happens.
Yeah, I think we're all in the same boat. I mean, whoever wins, we may not even know by tonight or by next week. So it's going to
Yeah.
be a long, crazy couple of weeks, maybe months, and then who knows whatever the result is. But yeah, it's an interesting, a historic night. But
Yeah.
we'll move on from the political talk to a historic fighter in mixed martial arts that pretty much seems like may have bid farewell to the UFC, and that was Anderson Silva, who unfortunately came up short in the main event against Uriah Hall this past Saturday. And Josh, I thought Anderson looked really good the first two rounds. I gave him the first round, but then, him being 45, it really kind of caught up with him. And Uriah Hall always starts slow and then gets going. And then, well, he got going and got that finish in the fourth round.
Yeah, I mean Anderson starts slow too. That's just kind of what he does. Both guys are kind of similar in that sense. Yeah, you could definitely tell he's older. He just by the way he moves and whatnot. But yeah, I thought he looked all right. All things considering, he's not going to be your top guy anymore. You can't compete with the five best guys in that division, of course. But I think he still showed that he can still fight and he can still hang with some elite fighters and. Yeah, he got finished in the fourth round, wasn't it? I
Yeah,
think it was
fourth.
fourth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought he looked good the first two rounds, and then yeah, he started to kind of slow a little bit. But maybe he's not cut out for 5 round fights anymore. So just stick to the 3 rounders. And I know it's kind of hard to put him anywhere else other than main event, because at any main event's 5 rounds. So it's a difficult situation for them, but. I would like to see him fight one more time. To be honest, I think he has one more fight left on this contract, if I'm not mistaken. But I think they should give it to him, and give him an opponent that is kind of at the same point in their career. If there is somebody at middleweight like that, somebody that's at the very end of their career, that's not an up and coming killer.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because he still doesn't look as bad as some of the legends have, like BJ Penn, where you could see like
Yeah.
BJ had no business in there with some of those guys, or Randy Couture towards the end, or Chuck Liddell especially towards the end, where you really didn't want to see them, and they're hurting and tarnishing their legacy. I mean, it's interesting because Dana White seemed like he's really not interested in being in business with Anderson Silva anymore, and saying it'd be downright like disrespectful and criminal if they were to put on fights with him. When, the names I've mentioned before, he continued to trot out there just so they could get a paycheck and hurt their legacy and themselves, more importantly. So I don't know. I mean, Anderson though seems like he's ready to move on from the UFC. Like, he still wants to fight, just maybe not in the UFC. And I mean, you said you still want to see him fight. If it's not in the UFC or even MMA, would you still want to see him fight, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dana talked some shit about him afterwards too, like he always does, and kind of, that was unnecessary. I think you didn't have to say that, go to that degree of it, and even talk shit about Uriah Hall kind of too, even with a win and a finish. Who cares what round it was? He started slow, but he finished the fight later. But yeah, as far as Anderson, I think he's he was in the UFC when it was, I don't know, I want to say the golden years, but like back when it was like the biggest boom and it was up and coming and it was, flourishing. I mean, it's still flourishing, but glory years for in my opinion anyway. And I think he just kind of doesn't like the way it's going. I think with the big changes and whatnot, it's becoming much more, I don't want to say corporate, but kind of like that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So maybe he does want to venture out for a couple fights elsewhere. I don't know where he would go. I mean, I'm sure Bellator would be interested in giving him a fight. Now, that would be cool if he did do that, but like I said, I'd like to see him fight somebody that is over the hill, wants to fight just because they want to fight. They're not looking to make a title run, somebody that's older. So they could do it, or maybe somewhere in Japan.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options. I think his spirit still seems like he wants to fight, and I'm not here to tell anyone not to fight because, like as we said, he doesn't look terrible. I think the one option that is there is it may not be an MMA fight, but there was all that talk years ago about Roy Jones Jr. and he wanted to box him, and Roy's doing his own thing. He's fighting Mike Tyson
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks. I could see that being something down the line. Like that's a pay-per-view that sells just to any casual sports fan, and the hardcores themselves have some intrigue in it. So I would be interested in with it. Japan would be definitely interesting as well because you could definitely get someone in there and the name value, what have you. I think it'd be cool to see Anderson go back because he did get his first real start with the Pride promotion back in the day. But yeah, it's real interesting to see what happens with Anderson. As you did say, Dana was talking some smack, and it's kind of odd to see Dana talk some smack about a guy that helped build up Brazil to the level that it is right now and cross over to a lot of levels that fighters can only dream of.
Is it really odd though? He talks shit about everybody all the time, man.
He does, but
You
it's
know what
like
I
it's
mean?
Anderson. Like he never really said anything bad about Anderson before, and I
Well,
just
he's
thought it
talked
was
shit about him before about some performances that were lackluster, like
well.
those fights and I mean, there's always something, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of depends on what day of the week it is with him.
True. I mean, yes, he was not a fan of the Talus latest fight and the Damian Maya fight back in like 2010 and whatnot. Sure, but I just thought it was not the time. Like they were
No.
the whole broadcast was celebrating Anderson Silva,
Yeah.
and then Dana's gonna be out there like, oh, this guy's terrible. I can't get him out there. It'd be criminal if we put him out there again. I just thought, like, read what your own promotion's promoting. I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm getting. But I thought that was interesting. But the winner of that fight is Uriah Hall. And Josh, where does Uriah Hall go from? Because middleweight's starting to pick themselves up again. And I feel like Hall just needs one or two more guys to get to that next tier of top middleweights.
Yeah, that's he was like the a big hype, right? And then he kind of faded and came back and faded and came back. And I think it was all just like I think we talked about this last week was just like it's a mental game with him. You know what I mean? It kind
Yeah.
of depends what Uriah Hall is there and if he's mentally there, then he's a killer. So yeah, I think a guy like I'm trying to think of like a top five middleweight right now that's kind of maybe even like um what's his name? Jack Hermanson,
Jacker Manson, yeah.
somebody like that, or even like Apollo Costa coming off a loss, or I mean, somebody that's amongst that top five that has a big name that can push him towards that title shot.
I think if anything, they go back to the Yoel Romero fight that they were trying
Yeah.
to make back in August, where before that fight fell through. I think that fight makes a lot of sense right now because
Mhm.
Yoel's kind of like at the gatekeeper status and can still make himself a title contender at 185 pounds. And if Hall beats him, he's definitely got himself in the running to be a title contender. But if he doesn't, then he's still like that one level below like the Adesanyas, the Whitakers, and the Romeros. But I was really impressed with Uriah Hall. I thought he looked good, and as we talked about last week and going into this week, it was a bit of a mental game for him, and he's had some snake bitten luck with injuries as well, so
Mhm.
that's kind of derailed his growth. But the moment at the end, though, I think we have to talk about. I thought that was such a beautiful moment. Like UFC's had two beautiful moments back to back weekends. First Khabib, and then that total sign of respect from Uriah Hall to Anderson Silva. I thought that was such a great moment, and well done how the UFC production team just like let the mics just pick up everything and no one talk over it.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I think it's earned. You know what I mean? It's Anderson Silva. The guy's been doing it for I don't even know how many years, 20 years, maybe more. Yeah, and he's been in the UFC for 15 years, so he definitely earned his moment to do whatever he wants, man. And that's pretty classy of Uriah. You tell the respect level that he had for him going into it and afterwards. So I like seeing stuff like that. It's pretty awesome. Same thing when with Khabib and Gaethje. You know what I mean? So it's promising to see stuff like that that's still in the sport. You know, it's not all just shit talking and trash talking and whatnot.
No, I think it's great to see as well that there is the true sportsmanship, the true martial arts characteristics that are coming on through it, and I do like to see that because as much as trash talking whatever can get you excited for a fight, it's sometimes nice to see that the
Yeah.
other side of the coin of the sport. But the co-main event on last Saturday for the UFC, an interesting one. It was Andre Fili taking on Bryce Mitchell, and this was a real competitive fight. And like every time I thought Fili got going, it was just Bryce's grappling and Bryce just proved to me he's one of the top grapplers right now in the UFC. Just took the fight down and shut down Fili when needed to be. And Bryce came through, got the unanimous decision victory. And Bryce Mitchell's making a name for himself at 145 pounds.
Yeah, man. I know Feely really well. Train with him all the time out in Alpha Male, and I picked him to win this. I knew Bryce Mitchell was a good grappler. I just didn't think he'd be able to take Feely down, and if he did, I just didn't think he'd be able to keep him down there and control him. But he was able to do that, man. Like that first round, I think he was on top for like 3.5 minutes or so. Won the round easily. In the second round, Feely was able to stuff the takedown, start moving his feet a little bit more, and start picking up the shots and landing some good shots as well. And I had Feely winning that round. And then it all came down to the third, and Mitchell just kind of just tenacity and good timing on takedowns and good finishing ability on the takedowns and keeping him down. He reminded me a lot of Khabib in the way that when he does get the fight down, he kind of easily passed and easily got mount all the times. I feel which training with him, I know it's not easy to do. So I think he's one of those guys that I can't say by experience, but I think he doesn't look as strong as he really is. I think he's got that farm strength type country boy strength on the ground there, and it gives problems for guys.
Or I mean, he absolutely has, and he's also like a creative submission guy. Like this is a guy that's got a twister submission victory in the UFC. Was almost had one in a fight back in May, and he grinded one out here against a tough, gritty guy as you know personally in Andre Fili, and for Bryce Mitchell, like that's a win you need, especially with how featherweight's starting to pick right up. He's undefeated as well, so his next fight, if anything's going to be at least opening or second bout on a pay-per-view probably. So I think for Bryce, like, the work that he puts on in there is as well interesting as well as what he does outside of the cage with his, political views, as some people may not like it, but he's still getting his name talked about. So Bryce has kind of figured out the game a little bit as well.
Yeah, and that's I went over Afili is he's a vet man. He's been in there with some good guys and a lot of wins, and that's a huge win for him. So I could definitely see them giving him a top 10 guy next, and then another win after that would be a top 5 guy, and then work himself up close to a title shot. But yeah, he's doing the right things, man, and he'll be like you said on the main card very soon.
Yeah. Well, what else did you like from this past Saturday? Because there was a lot of high action fights. I mean, we had a lot of finishes on this card, very few decisions. Anyone catch Uriah, Josh?
Dude, I can't remember today. I don't know how you remember all these fights, dude. I'll look back and once you tell me them, I'm like, okay, I remember that one. I remember that one. That was good. But I mean, those are the only two that we're talking about, quite detail. But what else you got on there?
Well, I mean, Miles John had a big third-round uppercut over Kevin Natividad. So the bantamweights, your division, they kind of put on a show. Adrian Yanez, who's coming off a Contender Series win, he had a highlight reel head kick victory over Victor Rodriguez. Alex Hernandez came back with probably his best performance he's looked since before he got the Cowboy Cerrone fight, with a first-round KO over Chris Grutzmacher. And Greg Hardy, who almost made history by being the first guy to ever miss weight at heavyweight, almost did, but he did get it on the second try. Got the, I believe it was a second round. Second round KO over Maurice Green. So, I mean, these are cards that a lot of more intrigue for the hardcore fan, but the quality of performances and finishes make it worth your while. I mean, it was an earlier start that I wasn't anticipating, of 4 p.m., but nonetheless, good night of fights, and then you just move on to another Saturday coming up here for the UFC.
Yeah. I mean, hey, more fights the better. I always say that. And the Greg Hardy thing, I'm assuming he just was off. I think that must have been a scale issue, man. Because sometimes when you anticipate the cut and you check a scale and a different scale, you might be off by a little bit. So point 0.5. He comes back as a heavyweight. You should be able to, there shouldn't be an issue to do 0.5. Once you get down to like my weight class, when 0.5 is hard to lose sometimes. But at that weight, that shouldn't be an issue unless he's cutting a massive amount to make it there. But I feel that was probably just a scale issue or something.
Well, Greg is one of the rare guys that actually has to cut down to the 265 limit. I heard Brendan Fitzgerald say on the broadcast he was normally walking around at 284. So that is a bit amount of weight. I mean, this is a guy that is a sensational athlete, like a former NFL Pro Bowl defensive end. So he's got the ability to do it. It's just there's always some sort of controversy with Greg whenever he fights, whether it's asthma, inhalers, or this. But nonetheless, he did make the weight, and he's not going to be fined and losing any person. And got a win over a tough guy in Maurice Green. So, heavyweight's always now picking its way back up. But I guess the big news, Josh, coming out of this past Saturday's UFC is Dana White announced that Israel Adesanya, the current middleweight champion, his next fight will be against Jan Blachowicz for the UFC light heavyweight championship. And, I mean, this one's a little interesting because we all thought it'd probably be Robert Whittaker next, but the way they made it seem was that Whittaker really didn't want the title fight. I don't think that's exactly how it was, but Robert Whittaker's got a lot of stuff going on before that fight, so nonetheless, the timing didn't work out. So now he gets to fight, Adesanya does, Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight title, and I think I don't know, it just feels coming out of nowhere, but in a way it does make some sense, as if you want to fight Jon Jones, maybe lure him in by holding a belt that he dominated for so long.
Yeah, am I the only one that I just don't really care about this at all? Like I'm not really excited about it, to be honest. I think Adesanya wins, to be honest. I know I like Jan Blachowicz. I think he's like that hardworking, like underdog type guy, and good for him on making the run and getting that title. So props to him, but I just think Adesanya is way too elusive and creative. He's gonna be faster, much better striker technically, and Blachowicz isn't a wrestler really. He's not relying on his wrestling and grappling abilities. More so, it's more just his knockout power and his stand up. I mean, of course, he can connect on Adesanya and knock him out for sure. I just don't think it'll happen. I just think Adesanya is too technical and too experienced in the stand up department, and I don't know. I'm not intrigued really by it. I don't know if it's just me or if it's just, I don't know.
I can see that because it just feels like he's picking his shot against a guy that a lot of people feel is the most beatable champion in the UFC in Jan. And it just doesn't feel like something where it seemed like Adesanya wanted to create this legacy at middleweight, and he's just moving up for the sake of potentially the big fight with Jon Jones. I don't know. I'm with you. It doesn't super excite me, but I mean, if Blachowicz wins, I think that does so much for him, and makes proves a lot of the doubters wrong. But I don't know. It just came out of nowhere, and it kind of does look a little bad at Izzy because he's just picking his shots right now, and I don't think that's what people wanted to see after, some of the champions we've had in the past.
I mean, I don't fault him for it because, like I said, I think it's a very beatable champion to go up a weight class and be a two division champ, and that's a big feat, and that's the thing to do nowadays. I guess everybody wants to do that. So I can understand why he's doing it, and it's an easier route to get 2 titles than it was when Jones had the title.
Well, also, I think it's the UFC's just seeing the cash and the money that comes with the brand of Adesanya right now. They realize you put the 2 belts on him, you can totally, market him another double champ. He's huge in certain markets that they're trying to get into, whether it's continued growth of like Australia, New Zealand. Obviously, him of Nigerian descent, they could potentially, have a card one day once this COVID stuff's over in Nigeria. And, he's a face for a new generation. So I could see them like just marketing all on Adesanya. And it's kind of crazy how this guy in like 2 years has become, from prelim fighter to arguably the biggest star in the sport right now. That's a currently active fighter.
Yeah, he's skyrocketed, man. Look what can happen in 2 years. You know what I mean? Like, kind of, really a nobody, not a nobody, but somebody that, like you said, a prelim fighter that was a good striker coming into the UFC, but now he's just kind of made a name for himself, and now he's a champion, looking to be a double champ.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be in the new year, so there is time to market it and maybe get you interested in it, Josh. I don't know, but I think
I'll watch it.
I think that's the way a lot of people feel. I mean, I'll still watch it, even though I don't really care too much about it. But yeah, I mean, it's still a long ways away, but it is a big title fight down the line, and UFC already starting to plan for 2021, which is of big importance. But this past Thursday, Bellator, they continued, and now they're on this big stretch of shows on Thursday nights on CBS Sports Network. They had their big fight for their middleweight title, where Douglas Lima took on Gerhard Mousasi. And, well, as much as we were real excited for this fight, Josh, it was one-way traffic pretty much, where Mousasi just proves he's such a hard puzzle to figure out, and really took it to Lima, as Lima just couldn't get off. And I think moving up in weight class did affect him. He looked tired after the end of the second round.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't actually get to watch it live. I was doing another podcast, so I had to go back and watch like the highlights and the rerun of it. But yeah, that can happen for sure, going up a weight class. Just somebody carrying somebody else's weight, and them knowing how to put that weight on you too. And Mousasi's a guy that is, even if you beat him, he's hard to look good against. You know what I mean? He's very technical. He's so experienced. He's very comfortable and relaxed. He's good everywhere. That's why I always say he's such an underrated fighter. And Lima, obviously his most devastating thing is his striking, especially his kicks. And then it's just hard to get those things off when you have, somebody of the caliber and the wrestling abilities and grappling abilities of Mousasi.
I think, we have to seriously take a look here. Mousasi is, a legend at, this 185, 205-pound, think about his track record. He won the Dream Middleweight Grand Prix when that was a big prestigious thing.
It was huge.
He was a Strikeforce middleweight champion, and now a former two-time middleweight champion in Bellator. He's brought home the gold. It hasn't been the prettiest or the sexiest looking fights, but when it came to getting it done, it's gotten it done. And he was never given the opportunity to potentially fight for a middleweight title in the UFC, hence why he left and went to Bellator. But nonetheless, you've pretty much won a title in every major promotion you've been in. We got to give it up to Gerhard Mousasi. 47-7 as a pro. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, 47-7, insane. And the caliber of the guys that he's beat to and fought against, and he reminds me of the middleweight version of Alistair Overeem. You know what I mean? He's kind of won everywhere else. Won all these titles, and man, as I said, he's the most underrated, underappreciated fighter out there right now, I think.
I think so too. He's such an interesting style. He doesn't get tired. He puts that pressure on you, and he kind of makes you dictate the pace and do what you want to do. And people are just worried about his counters and being maybe taken down or what have you. But I mean, I just thought for Lima, just prove stay at 170, and for Bellator, maybe keep the 170 guys going up to 185 a thing for a while to consider, because McDonald didn't look good against Mousasi, and now Lima doesn't. You may want to just keep your guys at 170 pounds.
Yeah, for sure. And it also prevents the clog ups in the division. When you get double champs, a lot of times the division gets clogged up. You don't see the belts defended. So I think it's always better to stay in the one weight class, but I mean, I understand why guys want to get the double champ.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought that was a thing of the past, honestly. That was a couple of years ago where everyone, I got to be a double champion, where I thought the sport had progressed and moved on, but apparently everyone wants to be a double champ again. I don't know, but I'm kind of fine with people proving their point. Super fights, cool, but I don't think we need to have double champs all the time, unless you're willing to defend them, like Amanda Nunes. She'll go 145, 135. Okay, I'm fine with that. But most champions are just hold the gold for.
I think Amanda Nunes is an exception just because there's nobody in that 145 division.
Yeah, well, that too. But she's willing to make the cuts for the
Yeah.
difference in that 10 pounds,
Yeah.
whereas we've had like a Conor McGregor just hold 2 titles just for the sake of status symbol, and we don't really need that. But yeah, that was the main event at Bellator. I mean, the other interesting thing I thought coming out of it was Jake Hager made his, I believe, third or fourth fight here for Bellator, and he took a big punch in that fight that totally rocked him from Brandon Colton, but he survived it. His eye was battered up, but got enough done to get the decision victory. So, for Jake Hager, a guy that obviously has the connections with pro wrestling, making the venture out to Bellator, I think that was a good win for a guy that's at 38 years old, but you're still a name that can draw people into your heavyweight division, and I thought it was one of the more interesting fights on that card, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's gonna like shit on him a bit just because of where he comes from. He's coming from the pro wrestling world and he's starting late. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's doing it. He's good on him, and I think this was a good fight for him because there's been like suspect opponents in the past for his first and second fight, and this fight I think it was just another tier, and it actually made him dig down deep because he could have easily just looked for a way out of that fight. You know what I mean? And he didn't do that, and he fought through it and battled adversity and still came out with the win. So I think that's a great fight for him. Obviously you don't want to take damage, but sometimes you're going to take damage. And yeah, it's a perfect stepping stone in his career. And we'll see what they do with him next.
Yeah, we'll definitely see. I know he wanted to fight earlier in the year, but the pandemic kind of messed that up. So hopefully he can get back in there early 2021 for Bellator, because he does bring some attention. I mean, he's the feature prelim on the YouTube page. So, he does, as I said, bring some interest in. And, he's only getting – you're not getting any younger. So see where he can go from here and keep up the dual schedules of both professional wrestling with AEW and mixed martial arts with Bellator. But they continue to roll on for this Thursday, Bellator 251, Melvin Manhoef and the debuting Corey Anderson in the main event. So a pretty interesting fight at light heavyweight for Bellator. I mean, Melvin Manhoef, we know what he's been able to do in both kickboxing and mixed martial arts, but Corey Anderson was literally like a couple fights away potentially of getting a UFC light heavyweight title shot before he asked for his release. The UFC granted him. He's now in Bellator and easily one of the front runners to get that light heavyweight title in Bellator.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that's kind of how Bellator is kind of playing it. I think they eventually want him fighting for that belt, whether it's 1 or 2 wins, most likely 1 probably. And I think this is a good opponent for him. I think Melvin's been around the game so long, man, but he still has that power. You know what I mean? So I think the only way we see Anderson lose this fight if he gets caught with a big shot. Which could happen because, man, Melvin is dangerous when that fight's on the feet. We'll see if Melvin can handle the wrestling ability of Anderson and being able to go, the full distance if there's cardio issues and whatnot. But I like it, man. It's an interesting fight. You always have that slugger chance, and we'll see what happens with that one.
Yeah, I mean, Melvin Manhoef, he's right now riding a 2-fight win streak in Bellator, so he hasn't fought the level of competition that a Corey Anderson is, but you still got to find ways to get some victories, build your confidence up, whereas Corey Anderson, as I said, his last fight was that loss to now UFC light heavyweight champion Don Blachowicz, so we shall see what he does. I mean, another name for that Bellator's brought from the UFC, but it's not someone that's totally worn down and been spit out by the system that is the UFC. This is a guy that still has at least 5 to 10 years left of solid mixed martial arts competition left in him, and I think he'll succeed in Bellator.
Yeah, I do too. I think he, like you said, he was a top tier guy in the UFC, and I think he'll be exactly the same thing in Bellator, if not champion.
Now, Josh, looking at my notes, I can't believe I forgot that one of the biggest stories coming out of this past Saturday's UFC is the announcement of the return of the Ultimate Fighter. Now, a lot of people are like, why are they doing this? They kind of have the perfect system with the Contender Series, and I agree. I like the Contender Series because you see the fights live. You don't have to tape delay it or anything like that, but ESPN's invested a lot in the UFC, so we'll have the show, I believe, airing in March of 2021. And as someone that was on The Ultimate Fighter, Season 18, Are you excited for it coming back? I mean, what were some memories like on the experience? Because I've seen a little bit negative on it coming back, but it's still an opportunity for some guys to make a name for themselves.
Yeah, I don't really care to see it again. To be honest, the last season that I watched, other than my own, was season 5. And the reason that was, I remember it was Jens Pulver and BJ Penn were the coaches, and it was the introduction of lightweights, and that was like the closest to my weight at the time, when they had brought in the UFC. So, and I was a huge Jens Pulver fan. But yeah, since then I've like kind of like, I've briefly watched here and there, but I've never actually followed the season. I think season 10 I watched a little bit of with Kimbo and Kame, and then that was really it, man. And then till when I was on the show, but I mean, they're just, they're trying to do shit. I mean, the Ultimate Fighter's been around for so long, and it's very well known. So, people are going to tune into it, I think. It'll give the fighters opportunities too. I think they're doing bantamweights and middleweights, I believe.
Yep.
So I'm interested in that because it's bantamweight. So I like to see. I'm sure I'll know some of the names that are trying to and who will make it onto the show. But yeah, I'm just, I'm kind of tired of that the whole layout of it. I guess it's interesting for the casual folk, but I much prefer just regular fights than watching the house shit.
Totally. But do you think though, like it's been off for 2 to 3 years now? Like, do you think that kind of
Has it
helps
been that
get
long?
some
Yeah.
people? It's been since 2018, I think, was the last Ultimate Fighter finale card. So yeah,
Okay.
so I think that's been
Dude.
a while. So they've taken their time. They've taken it away and they moved on to this new platform, which I think is better, the Contender Series. Nonetheless, they're bringing it back. But do you think the 2 year layoff of it does help kind of create some interest in it?
Probably, yeah. I guess like my, the only thing I do like about, I guess, it kind of takes once the guys are in the house, it's whoever wins, and you get the contract. So that kind of takes the power a bit away from Dana, as far as who he gets to pick on that day, whether they won or lost. You know what I mean? Like we see, my boy Romero kind of got screwed out of a contract when he fought. So if that was on the Ultimate Fighter and he won, and then he would have been awarded a contract. But so I guess in that, like, pure whoever wins, and they earn the contract in that sense. But other than the house stuff, I mean, it was, don't get me wrong, I had a really fun time, and I'm so happy I did it, and it was a very cool, fun experience. And I know there's only been a certain amount of people that are able to do that. So in that sense, it was great, and I don't regret it at all. But yeah, as far as someone watching it, I'm just like, I'd much rather just watch fights. I don't care about like the behind, or the drama that comes with the house.
Do you have any advice for people who are going into the casting and they make it, like when they go into what advice would you give to someone that gets cast and is going to be in that house for however long it is, like a month or so or whatever? Like, what advice would you give, and what friendships did you make on that season you were on, season 18, that you didn't think you'd make going into it?
Um, Advice, I would just say, be yourself, but be like vocal, I guess. Don't put be a role that's gonna people are gonna see through, that they know it's fake and you're just full of shit. But be yourself, but I don't want to see like be like a camera ham, but like make sure that when there's attention is on you, you take advantage of it, I guess, because at the end of at the end of the day, it is a TV show, and they're gonna like that. And then as far as friendships, I was lucky, man. I had a great season, and I became friends with like pretty much almost everybody, and I still am in contact with majority of them anyway. I'm trying to think of like people that I see. I mean, Holdsworth, when I go out to Alpha Male, I train with them all the time. So Chris is somebody that I still see quite a bit, especially when I go out there. So that was one. But yeah, there's been a lot, man, and I had a good season.
Yeah, I mean, your season was the focus more so on the women coming in,
Yeah.
because that was it, which kind of was unfortunate. But I mean, you were still a part of it, but I guess it sucked that you were kind of the guys were kind of put on the back burner
Oh
for
yeah.
once in a while. But well, that's how it goes, I guess. But I mean, The one thing I did read about you is I heard you and Shayna Baszler had like a pretty good time together, like bonding wise.
Yeah, man. Shayna's cool. We got along really, really well. And we were actually at first we didn't really talk much. She was on the opposite team. She was on Rousey's team. And then as the time went on, we just kind of shot the shit more and hung out and had a similar interest in pro wrestling. Obviously, she's doing amazing now and that. So, yeah, man, Shayna's awesome, and I'm glad to see she's doing well in the pro wrestling world.
Yeah, it's like half that season is
Yeah.
found their way to WWE, whether it's Ronda, Shayna, Jessamine Dukes now. Yeah, like everyone's kind of dipped their toe and are now with World Wrestling Entertainment in some capacity right now. And I mean, you're still grinding away, doing your thing right now in Belt. So that was actually kind of a successful season. It's just a lot of people maybe didn't make it to the UFC, but they still made it somehow, some way.
Yeah, and I think Shayna was definitely the reason, I think, and of that happening. I know Jessamine, became close to Shayna and got into that world. I know she was always a pro wrestling fan too, but then same thing with Ronda. You know what I mean? I think it was all kind of through Shayna. I mean, with Ronda's star power, she was able to skyrocket up in a hurry. But Shayna's definitely caught up to her now.
I will say actually though, Shayna did it the right way. She went to schools and worked the indies and then got signed.
Yeah.
Like, whereas Ronda obviously was going to get signed right away because she's Ronda Rousey.
Course,
but
yeah.
A lot of those other girls got just in with the connection. Like, Shayna went through the steps that an independent wrestler would have to go to making it to WWE. Sorry for the side tangent, but, like, I'll give Shayna all the props in the world, and she's one of the more unique women on television for that promotion right now. So I'm happy it worked out for her. I'm happy it worked out for everyone from that season. It's just someone not doing it in MMA, but, hey, as success followed.
For sure. Yeah, 100%, man.
Well, continuing the trend of success, Josh, is looking this past week on Monday, I guess, on Instagram, I saw BTC Fight is announcing that they have plans for a return in 2021 with 7 events, 5 of which will be on location in cities like Oshawa, Brampton, Burlington, and St. Catharines. Yeah, is the other one. With 2 events to be at their headquarters in Burlington. And Josh, this is about the best news I've seen in a long time. Like, I am so happy to see a plan in for having fights in this province, because it's been a lot of just unknown and silence or potential of plans, but this is something solidified out, and I just can't wait to call fights with you again personally.
Yeah, man, I feel exactly the same way. I want to call fights, and I can't wait to do that with you again. And but also it's I got a lot of teammates that are just foaming at the mouth to get back in the cage, and there's no opportunities for them right now. I've been fortunate enough. I've been able to fight during this time, and and finally we got a couple guys that are fighting next week in the XFC,
XFC, yeah.
XFC. So that's cool, but yeah, there's still a lot of guys that need to fight. So when I seen BTC, I know they've been planning stuff and they've been trying to make things work. And for I've been talking with Rob constantly, and just it's been so difficult with everything happening. But it's like you said, it's cool to see that they have a plan and they have shows booked for next year. The first one's in March, so I don't know. I'm hoping shit's good by then, or at least to the point where we could run a show, whether it's limited capacity or whatnot. But as long as we can run a show, have fights, and call them, that's the main concern.
I think the big thing as well is, if you're following sports in this province, like the Ontario Hockey League, they have announced a plan of coming back in February, which is a good thing. The bad news is they're potentially having hockey without body checking, which makes zero sense to me. And the logic behind it also makes zero sense. And apparently, like that, the provincial government is a mess right now. Like, they don't know who's on what side or what uptake. So hopefully, if we have OHL back in February with body checking, we can definitely for sure know that by March we'll have fights. But I mean, it all depends as well on the numbers going down. Right now, we had our most number of cases of coronavirus in the province today, over 1,000 plus. So we just got to get that number down. And I think by the time we get to January, hopefully we'll be in the clear, Josh.
Yeah, and these people that are making these decisions, like you said, the body checking, have most likely, I'm assuming here, but probably have never done any physical exercise in their life. And these are the people that are making the decisions on the gyms and what should be deemed closed and open and essential and blah, blah, blah. And, we can go on and on for this forever and talk about how it's poorly run and some things just do not make sense. But that's a whole other topic. But yeah, as far as, I want to see sports back, of course, because they're not just important for entertainment value. Obviously they are. We love watching them, but it's the the hobbies and the pastimes and the stress relievers of all the people that are involved. Like people, I know a lot of people that train on the regular just for fun recreationally, and they use that as their relaxation, their stress reliever, their kind of their friendship circle, and it's all been taken away from them now. So it's I want it done ASAP. Obviously everybody does, but I think the people that are making these regulations don't have that kind of interest in their life. They don't really know the repercussions that come with it.
And as well, now they've hit more reduced hours for gyms in the hot spots like Peel region. Toronto is going to be in a week from this upcoming Friday, and Ottawa as well. So the gym hours are now even more reduced as of today per
now
Premier
think of that, right? Think of that. To me, in my mind, when I hear that, I say, so gym hours are reduced, so it's going to be more people trying to get into the gym at a smaller window of opportunity there. That makes no sense. If anything, it should be open more to give more opportunity to have, times to spread out and train. So that's just boggling to me.
I just don't get the science behind how the gyms are all of a sudden getting like picked on. Like, yeah. I know it seems in theory that like, oh, well, all that equipment's touched and whatever, but I think the pandemic's caused the gyms as a whole to be even more sanitized or sanitized needing. I don't know why the gyms are really getting picked on. This makes no sense to me. And if you're going to shut stuff down, just shut it down all province. Like this half and half, like you're either pregnant or you're not, basically is how I look at it. Yeah. Like it's just mind-boggling how poor this has been run as of late.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. And like I said from the beginning, if they're going to just do like a shutdown, do the fucking shutdown, like everything be, obviously except for, grocery store, hospital, police, you know what I mean? Things that are absolutely you need. But everything just be shut down, and then we'll do it for whatever, 2 weeks, whatever, a month even, and then open back up. But I know there's more intricate details in that. But this flippy floppy, wish-washy, it's just brutal. And that's why we're continuing what's been 8-9 months now.
Yeah, I mean it's getting worse too. Like and they're not shutting stuff down because they're like, oh, Ontario is like actually underperforming what the scientists predict. But now we have a record number, and it's just all over the place. Honestly, there's no logic behind this in some senses to me. So, and I just feel bad for the gyms personally because they're just shutting them. They're just coming at like you're a business owner of a gym, so I can't imagine what the effects have been on you for all this.
We've been, like I said, lucky we had a good landlord that's been working with us, and we do have a smaller gym, so our overhead is very small, so we've been able to survive through this. But speaking of that, I just had another one, Parabellum, Pura, and now Bruckman Martial Arts. There's 3 staples of my career that I came up with. They're all shutting down. Pura and Parabellum already shut down, and Bruckman's shutting down the end of this month. Actually, unfortunately, I just seen his post the other day, and I sent him a message. And Justin's a guy that's been around the sport for forever. You know what I mean? And he was, he's been involved with my career since I started. And it really, really sucks to see somebody like that, lose. Have to be forced to shut down his business that was so successful too. He had a shit ton of students and great reputation in the sport. So it's just another reason why I just hate this shit and all these decisions that people are making because they're at the cost of people like that.
Yeah, especially, I mean, we talked about this before. It's everyone putting their life's work into something and having success, and then this pandemic happens and it's taken away from them with no fault of their own, which is, I think, the more heartbreaking thing of it, because they put all their time, effort, money, love of doing it, and it's gone for something that they have no control over. So I'm sorry to hear about that for Bruckman's and all the other gyms that are closing and having to feel the effects of this pandemic and how it's being run right now in this province. And hopefully we can get better. Hopefully common sense can be better as well from the citizens of Ontario. We don't need to be having people going to freaking weddings right now. I don't know. Like, there's that one case where like 48 people got COVID for going to a wedding. So avoid mass gatherings. Just wear a mask, be safe, and social distance. And hopefully we can get ready because, as we said, there's big plans coming up for BTC, but sports as a whole, we want to have it come back and be normal because it's such an important thing in life for the growth of the young. And as you said, it's an entertainment thing, but it teaches people more than, school or any other form of life can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was another thing, when you talked about like somebody losing their business and they're losing their money, their livelihood and everything like that, but they also built a community there, and a lot of people become close-knit friends and almost like some of their family. And people are losing that right now. And so that's going to affect them not only physically, but mentally as well, so it's a ripple effect that these decisions make. And the longer it goes, the worse it's going to get. So we're hoping we can get the hell out of this and let's just go back to somewhat of a normal life, man.
Yeah, well, I think we'll end the show on kind of that somber note, and hopefully to the positive prospects of people getting a hold of COVID and the numbers going down and normal life hopefully returning at normalcy and regularity soon. But Josh, before I let you go, plug anything you got going on and plug your social media as per always.
Yeah, Gentleman J Hill, as always. Everybody tune in, share, like us, and do all that social media bullshit. As much as I hate it, it's, I guess, important. And that's the way of the world now. And that's how we grow and we spread, and we can continue to do this, and we have fun doing it.
Yes, for sure. Well, until next Tuesday on this same bat time, same bat channel, that's the Gentleman Josh Hill. I'm Jason Hagcomb. Peace out, and we'll see you in a week from today.